Hey, GW coming to you live here. Hey, we're going to talk about Twin Peaks. We're going to go over that real quick for the second part of it, and then I'm going to tell you about a movie I saw yesterday that was a pretty decent, pretty gory, pretty interesting little horror film, if I had to say so myself. So, right now, let's dive into Twin Peaks. Now, my initial thought for this review was to describe all the characters, but would be here forever. Um, so let's talk a little bit about other things about Twin Peaks. When you break it down, Twin Peaks is actually a story about good and evil and the monsters we can't see. Now, if you guys haven't seen it, Twin Peaks was a phenomenon, there's no doubt about it. It was directed again by David Lynch, and the original title, as I hinted on before, was called Northwest Passage. And it was made into a movie, which I think I had mentioned in the first review, that it was actually solved. The murder of Laura Palmer was solved in the first movie, or the original movie, the pilot of the show, because again, I want to reiterate that they didn't know if this show was going to be picked up or not. So let's talk about some of the characters you'll meet in Twin Peaks. Obviously, the most common that everybody knows about is Agent Dale Cooper, and he plays Special FBI Agent. Kyle MacLachlan plays Special FBI Agent Dale Cooper. Dale Cooper is become probably one of the most recognizable faces and characters on TV because the show was such a big hit. He joins forces with Michael O'Keenan, who plays hard-nosed detective or police sheriff Harry S. Truman. That's right, I said Harry S. Truman. David Lynch also makes an appearance in the TV show, and it's pretty cool when he does. The supporting cast is all great. They're all quirky characters in their own right, and they all sort of carry the show. This was the only show, guys, that actually, one of the only shows that spawned a 1-900 line where you could call in, and the character of Lucy would give you clues as to who she thinks the killer of, Laura Palmer really was. And it was pretty huge. Now, right after this show, sometime after this show, David Lynch had began. The show fell apart. Let me just start there. The show fell apart in season 2. For those of you who haven't watched the show, once the murder of Laura Palmer is solved, there were problems with writing, directing, where they were going to take the story to, how much more could they go over, and they basically decided to cancel it after season 2 of the original series. And it was a shame because you could have done a lot with it, but having solved the murder of Laura Palmer, you took out the core reason why people were watching it. And when you solve a murder that people have been hanging on for a season and a half to figure out who did it and why, you basically have nothing else to go on. So what they did was they brought in a character from Kyle MacLachlan's past. Or not Kyle MacLachlan, Agent Cooper's past, I should say. Guy's name was Wyndham Earle. And the storyline was going to be set up to where Wyndham Earle and Agent Dale Cooper were going to trade wits, and they were going to sort of battle back and forth to an ultimate conclusion. That was going to be the season 2, season 3 deal. But when the writing fell apart and viewership dropped on the show, guys, it got canceled pretty quick. In fact, Wyndham Earle was only in a handful of episodes. It made for good storytelling, but ultimately it didn't do the show any sort of justice whatsoever. The show fell apart, and then Lynch went on to other projects. He did, if you guys don't know it, he did Dune, with Kyle MacLachlan. Kyle MacLachlan became the go-to David Lynch actor, him and Jack Nance. So they've done a couple of projects, Kyle MacLachlan in particular, Dune. They did Blue Velvet. And then they came back to the drawing board, guys, and they wanted to show you guys what happened before and after Laura Palmer's death. So after the season 2 finale of Twin Peaks, you have half the movie sort of describing what happened after, you have half the movie before, and they called it Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, which I know what I just said, but it's more of a prequel movie. It shows the last days of Laura Palmer, and it also shows what she was into. I know it was hinted around on the show that, she was a heavy drug addict. She was doing all this crazy stuff. So they reunited everybody for the prequel film. And it did pretty well. In fact, that was the first that I really got a taste of Twin Peaks. I saw the prequel film, and then a little bit later I ordered the series and I checked it out. And if you watch them consecutively, yes, it makes sense. Now, if you go on the internet, they will also tell you how to watch the show, because I believe 2019, David Lynch put out a limited Showtime series, Twin Peaks: The Return, which had everybody from the original show, minus Michael O'Keefe, who played Sergeant Harry S. Truman in the original. For some reason, he didn't want to do it. And the few cast members that passed away. Now, what I was going to reiterate before this show was the fact that David Lynch teamed up with Trent Reznor for a movie called Lost Highway. The song was called The Perfect Drug. It was done by Nine Inch Nails. Lynch and Nine Inch Nails seem to share the same weirdness or fondness for the bizarre, the strange, the atmospheric, and they fit well together. In fact, Trent Reznor did the whole soundtrack for Lost Highway with a cat named Angelou Badalamenti. Am I saying that right? Badalamenti. But anyway, that cat did all the scores for David Lynch's films. I love his music. It really puts you in a really bizarre mood, and you can really feel the scene when you listen to him. So anyway, when Twin Peaks: The Return came back, David Lynch liked Trent Reznor's music so much that he put him in a spot in the show, and it was a pretty cool thing for not only Nine Inch Nails fans to see their lead singer, their hero on stage, but it was also a testament to the partnership that Trent and David Lynch actually worked on. David Lynch and Trent Reznor have went on to make a couple of more soundtracks, but the Lost Highway one is in particular, and if you haven't seen that movie, that's a head trip from hell, man. You guys got to see that. So basically what happened in Twin Peaks: The Return was that Dale Cooper, I'm going to throw out a spoiler here, has been missing since the finale of the original series. And the FBI figure out that Cooper is still alive, trapped in a dimension. Now, the show Twin Peaks: The Return sort of takes a left curve from what made Twin Peaks, the original series, great. It was still about quirky characters and a murder, but it was also about monsters that can disembowel and, rip people to shreds. It was about a falsely imprisoned father. It was about characters that only have sprang to life in David Lynch's head. The climax of the show, I'm not going to ruin it, but it throws you a real curveball, because now we're stuck in like a carousel that won't stop. That's all I can tell you about the finale. Everybody had returned for the finale, or for the Twin Peaks show, like I said, except for Michael O'Keefe and the log lady, God rest her soul. She was a great character. And what you saw was everything you ever wanted it could be, but it really took its time. Showtime did, I think, they did a 10-12 episode arc of the whole thing. David Lynch has since went on record and said a few times that yes, he would like to continue the Twin Peaks, but he doesn't know where the story could go. Now, it's pretty interesting because some of those episodes in that particular show, Showtime gave David Lynch more freedom than I think Channel 11 or Channel 4, whatever this was on, because the original series was on broadcast TV. And again, nothing had ever been done like this. So Showtime come along and gave David Lynch, and said, hey, do what you want. So we upped the violence, upped the profanity. And now Cooper's evil doppelganger is running wild. He's a bad dude, man. It's Kyle MacLachlan unstripped and doing everything he wishes he could do. I think he wanted to break out sometimes of the Agent Cooper character and couldn't. But Twin Peaks: The Return was definitely a landmark event. There are some really chilling episodes in there. And I don't mean scary. I just mean like it gets under your skin sort of deal. But people ask me all the time. They say, Greg, you like David Lynch. What would be a David Lynch movie? Because I'm not into the hip, trip, bizarre. I don't have much patience. I always tell them Wild at Heart. Wild at Heart with Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern. That is like The Wizard of Oz on the road to hell. And I think it's easy to follow. It has a lot of Lynch elements, but it's beginner style. If that one doesn't trip your trigger, probably the next one would be Blue Velvet. Another easy, straightforward sort of deal to understand. And again, you have Kyle MacLachlan, you have Dennis Hopper as one of the most chilling villains ever to be put on screen. And it really works. I can't really say too much about Twin Peaks: The Phenomenon or Twin Peaks: The Return without ruining things if you guys haven't seen it before. And I wish I could. But definitely, if you're looking for something to do on a very, very cold winter week where you got nothing to do, the original show is on, I believe, Paramount Plus and I believe Amazon Prime. I believe you can catch those on there. If you have Showtime and you have Showtime on demand, you can watch The Return. Now, go on the internet, like I said, because they tell you a specific way to watch these films to put them in chronological order, and this TV show as well. Now, one other thing. If you are thinking about just buying it because you don't have those services, buy the Twin Peaks: The Whole Mystery Blu-ray. And I'm going to tell you why. Because it has the first season. It has the second season. It even has the prequel movie. Now, a lot has been said about the prequel movie, and I think maybe I covered it on my last review. The prequel movie was over 4.5 hours long. And because David Lynch wanted everything. We wanted to saturate the audience with the world of Twin Peaks. Whatever we can show extra, let's just put it in there. And there are deleted scenes which, when you see them, actually would make Fire Walk with Me a much better film. Because when that film was released, guys, you got to understand, it did not do well at the box office because people had already known what happened to Laura Palmer, so they didn't care what happened prior to her demise. They didn't care. And it was very, very interesting. It's a very interesting time in history when TV and movies were like that. Think about it. I don't know of any other TV show that had its own movie back in that time. And you guys could order, well, Saturday Night Live had this, and then Saturday Night Live had the Blues Brothers movie, and that was in 1978, so that was before the Twin Peaks phenomenon. But regardless, check it out, and I spent 15 minutes wrapping up Twin Peaks, and I know I could have went into depth a little bit more, but again, if you haven't seen the films and if you haven't seen the TV show, it's really strange. It's strange because it sucks you in, and it's strange because there's characters that just act weird, and part of the appeal to Twin Peaks is you want to see how strange these guys can get, and then you start thinking, who could have killed Laura Palmer? Then when they solve it, it sort of killed itself because it didn't know which direction to take. Resurrected again in 2019 and lasted a season, and some people were perfectly happy with the way it ended. I was neutral about it. I was just glad to see that some of the loose ends got wrapped up and we got to see things we never saw. And Showtime did give David Lynch, like I said, more freedom. And I think you really can say a lot about Twin Peaks, but the crux of it is that it was a major TV phenomenon. The movie bombed at the box office, and it was still considered now a cult classic. It bombed at the box office because people already knew what had happened. They weren't interested in anything. Then Lynch comes out years later and does The Return, and I think the core audience had moved on. I think that's what happened. Now, also, if you do buy the whole mystery DVD, I believe this is just kind of cool. Kyle MacLachlan one time was on Saturday Night Live, and the whole show was about him, and they made fun of Twin Peaks so bad. I think it was every other sketch. And they did a really, really good one about everybody, all the Saturday Night Live cast members were in character as the Twin Peaks townfolk. And everybody was coming up to Kyle MacLachlan, Agent Cooper, and they were saying, hey, I killed Laura Palmer and this, that, and everything. And it was pretty funny, especially if you had never seen the show and you watched the show, then you jump to the skit, which is on the bonus thing. It was pretty cool. But Twin Peaks is really, to me, one of my favorite shows. Once I've seen it, I go back every so often and, I'll watch it or I'll watch the movie just for nostalgia factor because, again, at the time Twin Peaks came out, nothing had ever been done like that on TV. As far as, a straight crime show mixed with a soap opera, mixed with a drama. I mean, it was everything mixed with paranormal. It was just very, very strange, but very unique. And I would consider that a classic. And I'm not saying that the direction or the finished product was classic because, like I said, the TV show fell apart after they had solved the murder. And the direction they took and the writing and this and that, and it created its own demise, I guess you could say. It skyrocketed quick, but then after it did the thing that it wanted to do, it basically had nowhere else to go, bottom line. But all 3 seasons, as well as the movie, are definitely worth the watch if you like things that are not normal or take a left turn. Definitely check it out. So let's flick gears for a minute here. Let's talk about a movie that I watched yesterday that was pretty good, and I had never heard of it. I heard about it, but I never really checked it out because when you look at it, it looks like basically one of those zero-budget horror films you have no interest in. You turn it off 15 minutes prior or after the initial film. That is not the case. The movie in question I'm talking about is a movie called The Hills Run Red, and it's from 2009. And let me give you, it's from Dark Castle. And if anybody remembers Dark Castle, they put out like Gothica, Ghost Ship. I believe they did The Wax Museum or House of Wax. They did that. So Dark Castle was always doing creepy films like that. Now this is in the vein of, I would say, like Friday the 13th or Hatchet. It's one of those gore films, and it actually is pretty neat. It's a really, really splattery flick. I'm going to tell you that right now. It was directed by Dave Parker. I don't know if he did anything else, but this is probably, I think he probably went on to do a couple other things. Very cool. Dave Parker also directed Full Moon's Dead Hate the Living, and if you haven't seen that movie, very cool. Very interesting, very clever, zombie movie. So let's see. Sophie Monk is in here. She's pretty cute. Let's see. Tad Hildenbrink, Jana Montgomery, Alex Wyndham, and William Sadler. There's a guy. William Sadler made some good stuff. But anyway, it is about... It's about a kid who's obsessed with a movie called The Hills Run Red that apparently was released in the 70s. And no copies of it exist. He's doing research about this movie, and he figures out that he can go and see where the movie's shot. Maybe meet the director and actually watch, the film. Apparently it was pulled, no copies of it exist, so he's trying to make a documentary about how this movie disappeared. Well, doesn't take a genius to figure out what's going on. So he tracks down the director's daughter, played by Sophie Monk, who, I'm not going to ruin the surprise if you guys haven't seen it, but she is not what she seems to be. So trying to get close to her, he tries to procure a copy or figure out what exactly happened. In this particular movie, The Hills Run Red, that he's looking for, there is a killer known as Babyface. And Babyface is sort of this weird, sort of Jason-esque character that's big and hulking. And tell you what, the boy can take some shotgun blasts, I'll tell you that. But the gore level in this is max. There is all kinds of torture scenes right out of Saw movies. There's decapitations. There's all kinds of maims, stabbings, all kinds of crap. Torturous traps, a lot of nudity. So this is pretty much a gorehound's dream. So he ends up finding the director, William Sadler, who is supposedly dead in this film. And basically, the movie's pretty short. It's only about maybe 98 minutes, 81 minutes. Seems like it's a tad longer because the gore scenes stretch out, but this movie had everything a horror fan could want. It had a twist ending. It had gore galore. It had a killer that wears a baby face instead of a hockey mask, who's indestructible. It has all kinds of tense white knuckle moments. Now, I did hear about this movie. Like I said, I didn't know it was this good. I kind of saw it on one of those YouTube Watch Mojo, top 10 bloodiest movies of whatever. And it came up and I started to watch it. And I didn't know anything about this. But I'm going to tell you something. This is put out by Scream Studios. And if you look at the cover, it looks like The Hills Have Eyes cover. And you're looking at it and you're going, it looks cheaply made, whatever. Don't pass this one up. This one, brutal, bloody. I mean, the effects, they were, not CGI either, which was kind of interesting. It also has a bit of Deliverance thrown in with the local hillbillies who are not what they appear to be. But this is like a descent into hell, because the deeper this kid goes to find a print of this, the crazier things get, to the point where, it was surprising with the gore. And like I said, to the point where you don't know how it's going to turn out. And I think it teaches you a moral lesson. I think it teaches you, if you like a movie, like it. You don't have to jump all the way in and sort of really go crazy with it. I think that's the morality here. But definitely look up The Hills Run Red. Definitely a good slasher film. It really surpassed my expectations, and that says something. I mean, usually I know pretty good horror, but I had never heard of this one. This one, I mean, in the last 5 or 10 minutes, there's a montage of Babyface just killing all kinds of people. It's really crazy. I'll tell you another one that I watched that's pretty old. You guys might not know of. It's called The Cat in the Brain. If you guys ever heard of a horror director called Lucio Fulci, he's done some crazy, amazing, classic stuff. He did um, City of the Living Dead. He did it's on tip my tongue. On tip my tongue. Ah, crap. The Beyond. That's what it was. The Beyond. This one he plays himself, and in this film he plays himself as a horror director, and he hallucinates something fierce, and he can't distinguish what's on the screen to his real life, and it's a very, very bloody, crazy movie. And if you haven't seen that, definitely look it up. Those two would pair good as a Grindhouse Friday night deal for you guys. But yeah, Cat in the Brain might be hard to find. It's on Prime for free, I know that, so definitely give that a whirl. But yeah, The Hills Run Red, guys, do not pass it up. If you're looking for a good horror film, or you're a collector of horror films and don't have it, I really liked it. Now, it does have the corny acting, but it also makes up for it with the nudity and the violence, and it's all great. You know, it's pretty much a good thing. But I was very surprised. I got to tell you, I mean, again, because I didn't expect much from this movie. I expected, zero interest, but the story was okay. The kills what made it good. And then William Sadler actually making a cameo, which I didn't even see this. I didn't even see his name in on the Blu-ray, but now the only thing I will tell you about this movie is that on the special features, I wish they would have made a copy of The Hills Run Red. Even if it was 15 minutes long, the parts you see in the movie, I wish they would have added that. However, very good movie, very underrated, and I would recommend it to anybody who's looking for good gore or good splatter film. Anyway, I know it's long overdue, so I hope Twin Peaks Part 2, I hope you guys understood where I was trying to go, because if I would have explained all that, we would have been here for 2 hours. And I know some people, they just don't know. And far be it for me to tell them when they could find out, but definitely check out the David Lynch, Trent Reznor connection. It's pretty cool. I seen circulating on the web, though, guys, somebody did make their own 9 Inch Nail figures. My buddy Josh sent me a picture of it. Very cool. And I'm surprised he was only on that show once. You would think he would be like a background dude or something. But I'm going to have to find that episode and elaborate more about that. Also, speaking of 9 Inch Nails, the Downward Spiral record. A little bit ago, it was the anniversary of that record, and I bought that record. Josh told me to check it out. I ended up buying a copy for me, and I fell in love with that record, that industrial rock, the craziness. I fell in love with each individual track, and I must have listened to that CD, dude, like 50,000 times, to the point where it's ingrained in my head. I'd play Doom, and I'd hear, I am a big man with a big gun, and I would just go crazy, playing Doom. It fit. But that's why you never gonna see Greg mess up around, because I know reality from fantasy. Nothing else really going on in current news that I know of. Local news, nothing. Current news, nothing. I got a birthday coming up, so probably just gonna get up on here and tell you guys what's up. Maybe watch a few flicks, but hey, whatever. But yeah, check it out, man. Check it out. And sorry it took so long for me to jump back on. Life has been crazy as of late, and I'm just riding the train, y'all. Just riding the train. Also, if you guys like hearing me talk, maybe you'll like hearing on YouTube, there's a girl named Anna Hummel. She's part of the Bubba the Love Sponge crew. Check her out. I've been listening to her fairly often. I've been playing Rise of the Ronin. That game rocks. I don't care what anybody says. Just been working hard, gearing up for Easter, getting ready to get winter going, But nothing crazy. So I've been on here for like a half hour. And talking about everything from Twin Peaks to The Hills Run Red. I mean, go figure. There's GW. Thank you to all my supporters. Casey, Emily, Connor, Rebecca, everybody. Tim. my boy Dre. My boy Dre's supposed to be coming down to PA sometime, so hopefully I'll get him on the show. And you know, um, but yeah, everybody who's actually giving a crap about me, I really appreciate. And I appreciate all the lines. I've been commenting on the YouTube thing. Like they'll have like happy birthday, somebody, and I'll comment like happy birthday Kurt Russell, and I'll put something. Everybody likes my comments. Or Friday or Nightmare on Elm Street 3 was great. What was your favorite moment? And I said, and everybody liked it. So I just want to say thank you for all the hate, all the appreciation, you know. And talk to you on the next one, man. Peace.